Thank you for joining us for Turn the Page with Paige, brought to you by Goddard Schools. I'm your host, Paige Holsey. In this series, we love to learn the story behind the bedtime stories that children are enjoying by introducing you to the local authors and illustrators that make those works of fiction come to life. But sometimes reality and history can be even more captivating than a fantasy tale. It might sound crazy, but it's true. And that is the title of Dan O'Neill's newest book, Crazy But True St. Louis History. The unpredictable, unbelievable, and downright bizarre true stories capturing the imagination of children and adults alike as they learn everything they need to know and a few things they probably don't need to know in a photo-rich, fun-filled extravaganza. Author Dan O'Neill joins us in studio. So glad that you're here, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Paige. Great to be here.
Where did the idea for this book come from?
Well, you know, the internet's a dangerous thing, as we all know. But it's great for research. So, you know, I've been a sports writer most of my adult life, and I know a lot of weird facts, sports-wise, that I'm familiar with and have written about in the past. And, you know, just in talking with people and things, I just started thinking about it. And it was sort of I wonder what else is out there that's sort of like this, and maybe it would make a good book. So I started researching, and a lot online, a lot in other books, and a lot, you know, through old newspapers and things, and found enough things to make a book out of it.
Yeah, I bet you found more than enough things.
Yeah, you had to be a little selective. Not everything was prime time, but it's a fun book. I think it's a fun book for all ages, you know, for kids and certainly for adults as well.
This is what I want to talk about. What are some examples of the crazy but true things, the stories in there that kids might enjoy the most?
Yeah, I think kids really will enjoy any of them. I gave one to my 7-year-old granddaughter, Avery, and she loves it. So it's all very short stories with illustrations and pictures, but you know, some of the examples are in the 30s. There, Peevely Dairy used to deliver milk, milk cartons or milk trucks, and it was driven by 2 milk maidens and 2 African zebras named Hans and Tanta.
What?
Yeah, and they did it for several years.
Was that like a marketing thing?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but you know, could you imagine a couple of zebras pulling up to
My
the
kids
house?
would love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mom, the zebra milk is here.
Yeah, so there are things like that. There's people I think would be surprised to know that there's possibly sharks in the Mississippi River. They've been caught twice.
Recent? I hope not recently.
Well, in 1937, they caught a 5-foot, 84-pound bull shark, and bull sharks are the most aggressive sharks. And then as recently as 95, they caught a 6-foot bull shark.
That's in my lifetime.
Just downriver, just south of downtown.
Wow.
So, you know, be careful. If you're fishing in the Mississippi, be careful what you wish for, you know.
How long did you work on this book? I mean, that was a lot of
most
research,
of the
I
year.
imagine.
It was about a year project, yeah.
Okay.
Because as you mentioned, you know, you come across a lot of stuff, and then you kind of have to be selective about it and decide, you know, which is really kind of interesting and which would be most fun. And I also, there is a lot of sports. You know, I'm a sports writer.
St. Louis is a sports town.
Yeah,
so
it's
that's
absolutely great sports town. So, and there's actually a lot of really interesting sports things about St. Louis. So there is there's quite a bit of that in the book, but it's not a sports book per se.
And it's a great, I'd say, coffee table book. You don't need to sit down and digest the whole thing in one setting, which also kind of makes it a nice storybook if parents want to enjoy it with their kids.
Right.
Read a couple of the stories each night.
Yeah, well, I think that's what kids love about it. Because first of all, it's very colorfully illustrated and everything. But it's short stories. I mean, it's just sort of fun facts and a little bit of a story behind it. It's not, you don't have to sit there for a half hour and read one chapter, and then, well, we'll read the next chapter tomorrow. So, yeah, it's for small attention span, it's great.
Dan is a St. Louis native growing up in University City. I love your bio from your publisher, Reedy Press.
Yeah.
It says, at age 15, he lied about his age and got his first job as a busboy at the Arena Club during the formative years of the Blues franchise. We're going to reframe that. We'll
Yeah.
call that your beginning as a storyteller.
Well, I lied about everything. You know,
You
there's
lied
quite
about everything.
There's quite a few things I lied about when I was 15. But yeah, I did do that. I worked there for a couple of years when the Blues first arrived. And it was a great experience. It was probably the best job I ever had. I loved it. We were busboys, and we'd set up. They'd have big dinners before the game, and people would come in. And you know, when the Blues first got here at the old arena, people dressed to the nines.
It was a big
and,
event.
It was like Beatlemania for a while.
Yeah.
And so they'd eat dinner, and then they'd go out and watch the game, and then we'd sit down and eat dinner and watch the game on television in the club. So it was
But
great.
then you went on to become a writer. You didn't stay a busboy forever. What is it about
Yeah,
writing
I should have. What a mistake that
you
was.
maybe so.
Yeah, well, I became a writer. The way that happened actually was, I was kind of not sure what I was going to do. I'd been out of high school for 6 years, and I started taking a couple of classes at Forest Park at night, and I had a teacher there who I took a creative writing class, and he pulled me aside one day and said, "Listen, I don't know if you're serious about this, but I think you ought to look into it. If you like it, you ought to pursue it." So that's how it happened.
Isn't it great how you can think back and identify that formative teacher that really helped
Yeah,
you
I
find?
can't remember his name, but
Well, you remember that conversation.
Yeah.
You remember how you felt in that moment.
Right.
What else do you have in the works? I want to see a children's book come from Dan O'Neill.
yeah. Well,
Gonna happen?
I do have one.
Okay.
It's written. It's just I have to find a publisher for it.
Can you
And
tell me a little bit about the storyline?
Yeah, it's about my granddaughter Avery, and her middle name's Rose.
Okay.
And so I wrote this book called The Day That Avery Rose Lost Her Nose. And it's sort of a takeoff of the game, where, hey, I got your
Got your
nose,
nose.
and with her mom. And it's a rhyming book. It's just kind of a goofy, silly kind of book, but I need to find a publisher for it.
Okay,
so.
we're going to make that happen. Looking
Good.
forward to seeing
I'm
that.
following your footsteps.
Well, I'm doing my best. Before we let you go, I want to ask a book recommendation, a children's book recommendation from another author or illustrator, either that you're reading now, I know you're a grandfather, or maybe
Yeah.
one that you remember from your own childhood.
Yeah, well, I have to be true to my grandson Jack, who's a 2-year-old, and every time he takes his nap, he wants to read Where's My Mother? No,
Are You My Mother?
I
And
always
I-
get that confused.
And I only know that because I have the
Yeah.
same book in my basket
So you
at
know the
home
book.
that my 2-year-old is also anxious to read often.
So I read it. I can't tell you how many times I've read it. I pretty much know it by heart.
Yeah.
But I think P.D. Eastman is the author, and he or she, I should know that, but they've done other books like that. But Are You My Mother is
A classic.
You can't go wrong. Yeah.
Going through. Well, Dan, congratulations on your book. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great to chat about the story behind your story.
Thanks, Paige. I appreciate you having me.
And we hope that you'll stay tuned for the next episode of Turn the Page with Paige. We'll see you soon.